to my LinkedIn profile, you could see some business accomplishments, some things that I'm really proud of, because frankly, all of them happened once I got sober. In a nutshell, I was in the motorcycle industry since I was 20 years old. Started off on a little order desk for a national distributor in the motorcycle industry. And from a simple decision of saying, yeah, I'll take this job instead of being a security guard, developed a career where my last position was National Director of Dealer Business Development for an international motorcycle helmet and apparel company. All pretty cool. Some of the most wonderful people I've ever met ride motorcycles. But as great as that career has been, more importantly, the fact that I was able to go from a person who hated himself and hated the entire world, and again, I just basically took all that self-hate and spewed it all over the place and put a little cherry on the top. I was blaming everyone. I wasn't taking any self-responsibility. If there was any problems, it was never my fault. It was people, places, and things. And so we're going to focus on really more so than anything else, what it takes a person to go from being hateful to being grateful, to being able to have a change in perception and realize that when it really comes down to it, no one else is responsible for the quality of your life but yourself. So again, a lot of this, yes, is mindset, but you can't think your way into right living. You got to live your way into right thinking. And that's another key component of this. But yeah, it does begin with how you see yourself and how you see the world. I call that part of the personal development identity. You know, and as I touched on before, how I was blaming people, places, and things for my problems. Even though I had no idea that I was perpetually being a victim, I was. Again, it would, and what took to change that, I was going to a meeting, and it was a group of younger people. There was a young lady. She got drunk. She had sex with someone, and she was regretful. She was shameful. She was resentful towards the person who she had sex with. She was blaming him for the encounter. And anyway, as she was speaking in the meeting, I didn't hear alcoholism. I just concluded, hey, this isn't a real drunk. This is just a teenager who had sex, and she's not happy about it. So I didn't see anyone even close to who I am. At the time, I was 43 years old. I could have been her dad. I had no empathy, no sympathy. And I also heard a young man who was going on and all about, I wrecked my car and stuff. And again, he was about the same age, high school age. And again, wasn't able to relate to him as all. So I used these people as an excuse to tell my sponsor at the time, which if you're not familiar with recovery, that's basically your mentor, the person that can help you through the unforeseen difficulties. And his name is Bob. And I went, Bob, I don't want to go to this meeting anymore. Bob asked me why. And I said, these people, they're not anywhere like me. They're kids, and they're just getting drunk, and they're doing things that high school kids do. These aren't real alcoholics. Bob came back with, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe there's nothing that these people have in common with you. Why don't we go one more time? Just prove me wrong. And so let's listen closely, and let's see if there's similarities instead of differences. So yeah, I like being right. I wanted to prove Bob wrong. So we went to the meeting one more time, and those people were there. And because those were pressing issues, they were weighing very, very heavily on them, they shared again. But this time, the young lady, when she was talking about her intense shame, I remember what it was like to be so ashamed. I never wanted to show my face again in school. I remember what it was like to just think that my life is ruined and there's no coming back from this. And the young man who wrecked his car, well, somewhere along the line, I got amnesia. And I forgot what it was like to wreck my first car. Well, actually, lifetime drunk. There was a couple cars, but yeah, I forgot what it was like to think that, yeah, that moment of liberation, of freedom, of thinking, yeah, I got a car. I can go wherever I want. I can do what I want. I'm somebody today. Well, yeah, all of a sudden, in a few moments, that's all gone. My life is shattered. And I had to go back to, being less than others. I had to ask for rides, take the bus to work and such. And yeah, again, I thought my life was ruined. And well, after the meeting, Bob and I talked, and yeah, I shared these things, and he said, okay, yeah, well, good. Glad you saw that. But maybe it was a fluke. Let's come back again. See you next week. So maybe those people aren't like you at all. Well, the reason why I share this story with you and such is one of the most key things that changed my life was going from seeing how I was terminally unique. There was no one else like me. My pain, my suffering, my misery. That ain't me. That's all of us. We all go through pain and suffering. We all have moments when we're afraid about the future, when we're indifferent, we're apathetic, we're just, I don't know, doing our best to survive. We're just kind of burned out on life. Regret, resentment, all those things. Every human being goes through moments of those. But I think the one that's really, really common, and it is the one thing that not just slowed me down and these people I was just sharing about, is shame. Shame is it's that rust on the inside that's eating up us on the inside. It's how we're slowly dying inside, and we feel empty. There's a hole in our soul. And yeah, we're certain that we have blown it, that our life's ruined. We can never come back from what we're ashamed of. And it leads to things like feeling you're not good enough, you're incapable. Well, and gosh, in my case, to offset that shame, it led me to being arrogant. It led me to thinking I was better than other people. It led me to being a jerk. Well, there's a lot of other words, but we'll keep it family friendly today. But yeah, to offset me feeling like I was less than everyone, I took a lot of effort, probably all the effort every day, to prove to myself and to the world that I wasn't as big of a loser as I thought I was. And all in all, did okay. As I said, my career was doing all right. The things I mentioned here and this stuff, again, happened in sobriety, but you don't get those opportunities, digging ditches. I was in the motorcycle industry. I was doing okay in each of my roles, despite the fact that I got drunk and high every day. But in the motorcycle industry, it's kind of okay to be that way. Played in bands, got my self-esteem helped up there, played all over the West Coast, predominantly in the San Francisco Bay Area, Las Vegas, where again, that kind of behavior, that's okay. In fact, actually, it's encouraged. That recklessness, that self-destructive lifestyle and such. That's what the musicians do. That's what the people that follow musicians do. That's what, in my mind, was making me cool. And it was just rationalization. It was just justification for behavior that was trying to kill the pain. And I think that's really, in my story, and I think for others, killing the pain is really the cause for things that we call addictions. And to be a little more specific, what I see an addiction is a type of behavior that anyone does to make them feel better. Whether they're feeling low, feeling they're high, but and again, whatever exactly the way they're doing it, if it's, again, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, some people it's materialism, for some it's success. They think if they're going to be very successful in their endeavors, they're making a bunch of money, they're proving to themselves in the world and stuff, they're not less than anyone else. And they have some success with it. It works, just like for myself, getting high all the time, getting reckless and such. It really kind of worked. Not kind of, it did. It was a good sustainable way to kill the pain until it didn't. And then, because I didn't know anything else, I perpetuated it. So that's really the other thing. We find some kind of a sense of relief, some kind of comfort when we're uncomfortable, when we want to feel different. And we keep going on with it despite the consequences, despite the negative consequences. Again, for myself, despite being a jerk, which obviously doesn't really allow for you to have any good relationships. When you feel better than someone else, when you feel less than someone else, there's just no way that you can have vulnerability. But frankly, I found over the last 14 years of my sobriety and such, vulnerability, honesty, humility, if you're courageous enough to practice fearless vulnerability, which means just getting honest with yourself and another human being, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that forms relationships and that forms connection. And again, this group is about connecting with other people, about listening, helping each other, doing what we can to let people know that what they offer into this world is valuable. So that's another one of my things and stuff. I found that when I continued on doing things that I thought were meaningless, I thought my life was meaningless. Eventually, I concluded I was meaningless. Well, in recovery, you basically just do contrary action, at least in the beginning. You want to get high? Don't. You want to yell at your wife? Don't. You don't want to go to a meeting? Go to the meeting. You don't want to go to work? Go to work. I think you can catch on here and such. It's basically just the other end of the spectrum and such, because your previous actions were leading to consequences that you regret, you resent, you're burned out on and stuff. You had anxiety of the future because the way things are going from bad to worse. You do the opposite. And probably the one that took the most courage for me was getting open and honest with another person. My bottom wasn't when I got sober. My bottom happened about 7-8 months into it. And I was suicidal, as it was talked about by Karen and stuff. I concluded that I couldn't do life as a sober man. I couldn't do life as a drunk. I couldn't do life. I had concluded that my worst of fears, the person that I'd put down countless times to lift myself up, I was him. I'm a loser. And so the only consequence really was suicide. But I was very, very fortunate. James heard my desperation. And he asked me, he goes, Randy, if you can't love yourself, can you at least let God love you? Gritted my teeth and said, yeah, I guess that's not too big of a request to ask. So then he followed up with, good. Can you let God love you through this fellowship? And that one, I didn't really understand the entire implications, but I knew what that meant was I was going to have to practice fearless vulnerability. But frankly, that's what happened. And I wish that it was a light switch and it was a straight line after that. It was all downhill. It wasn't, because I was basically as mature as I was when I started using habitually, which was 13 years old. I was a punk. I was a 44-year-old man who had the emotional maturity of a kid. And when you said, will you let God love you? I basically figured, well, if you love me, you'll do what I want. You really love me, you'll buy me a pony. Yeah, we love you and you're not getting your pony and such. But people loved me. They were present for me. They helped me out when I couldn't love myself and I couldn't be present. So what it led to is after, a while of understanding who I was and got clarity and confidence that I couldn't do it alone. Then I had to go through the next section, which is really about integrity. And integrity means a lot of things for a lot of people, but in this situation, integrity is just meaning being true with what you say. And, of course, your thoughts come in there as well. Before I say a single word right now, there's a millisecond of thought before these words come out. Just I had to realize that I maybe might have to give it a couple more seconds before something comes out of my mouth. And throughout the day, to kind of keep myself in balance. Just asking myself when I wasn't so emotional and wasn't so overwhelmed, hey, what's really going on right now? What's your motivation? Again, use the God word and stuff. Where's God in all this? These types of things help me expand upon and grow my clarity and my confidence and the consistency of being able to live. At first, it was without booze. But again, it allowed me to go through and through a personal examination, a process of self-discovery that I evolved from recovering hope to eventually discovering faith. Not just necessarily in God. I do believe in God, but more so I started having faith in those people around me and increased the faith that I could think for myself and make good decisions. And eventually, over the course of time, I crossed an invisible line, and I eventually learned to trust. Learned to trust God, the people in my inner circle, and most of all, I could trust myself again. And I realized, yeah, I still make mistakes, but we all do. But they don't have to be framed up in the same way as I did before and looked at them as failure. Now, these are opportunities to learn. So really what I'm getting at here is through this, I've just taken the position of being a student. I love learning. I love researching all types of topics, but pertaining to what's evolved out of here, I've been a student of it. Initially was a student of what it takes to stay sober. And then I realized a lot of it has to do with human nature. It's a lot more than just a specific problem, again, like getting wasted every night. It's how do I navigate through life? Well, again, one of the other things is having people that you can rely on. It begins with just having one person you can trust, that you can share things like, I don't think I want to live anymore. Now, maybe it might not necessarily be that dramatic. It might, though. I think certainly times right now and such, I have more than one conversation a day with people that are very desperate. And over the course of the time, they open up and say things like that. Some type of thing that I can see from being less personal in the matter and stuff could lead to unintended consequences. It could be self-sabotage. And unfortunately, it may lead to something that they could never, ever reverse. They may wind up creating a situation that they can't come out of, that downward spiral. That bottom is so deep that they feel it's impossible to come out of. So really what I want to do is help people be a little more proactive about it before they get so desperate. So, in their mind, helpless and hopeless and without any type of strategy or plan to get out of this hole. I want them to again, be able to see themselves and realize that to offset that feeling of desperation and that hopelessness, feeling your life is not worth anything. Well, again, you can't think your way into right living. You got to live your life into right thinking. And what I mean by that is when you start doing things that are meaningful to you, you start realizing over the course of time, like, yeah, I can help people. My life is meaningful. I can make a contribution to this world. Okay? And eventually, over the course of time, when you realize what you're doing is meaningful and is helpful for other people, then you start realizing that your life, you as a human being, you are meaningful. There's a purpose for living. There's a purpose for all the things that I've gone through, all the impossible moments. I just could not imagine what it was going to be like. But now I do. That this recovery was not for myself, it's for others. I could go on, and frankly, if I didn't have a timer, I probably would. And stuff. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to meet all of you. I'm grateful to talk with you a little bit more. But yeah, what this program's about is helping people going from hateful to grateful, to find meaning and purpose in their life. And most of all, what that does is not just find it, but to live it out. So again, Karen, thank you for allowing me to be part of the group. I look forward to meeting you all in just a few moments.